So today is Wednesday, July 11th, 2023, and my name is Marguerite LaPlant, and today I'm interviewing Charles Boyd at the Rocky Mountain Regional VA Medical Center in Aurora, Colorado, as part of the Remembering Our Veterans program. So how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great.
So we're going to start off by asking about your childhood. So where were you born?
I was born in Greenville, South Carolina in 1949. I lived in the projects. I remember my address, 5D. I was born to Roy Lee Boyd and Georgie Anna Boyd. And I have two sisters and two brothers that I love dearly. I'm very close to them. However, I lost one of my brothers May of last year. And then I went to elementary school with, actually I went to school with Jason Jackson. He was a few years ahead of me. And we moved from the projects at age 8 because my father was killed. And so my mother wanted to leave the town, and we moved to a town called Lawrence, South Carolina, which is a very small town, and it's very racist. They made a movie about the town. The movie is called Burden. The book is called Burden. My cousin, David Kennedy, played the lead role. It's a true story, but Forrest Whitaker played my cousin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's about the only Ku Klux Klan museum in the United States that my cousin bought. He protested against it and bought it.
Wow.
It's an interesting story. Read it or see the movie, Burden.
I mean, I would probably do both.
Yeah.
So was this a big transition for you? What was it like going from living, with your father and having your whole family in sort of would you say like a less racist part of town? What was that kind of transition like after his death?
I lost my mind. I lost everything. I eventually found myself months later. But yes, my life transitioned from being an individual to one to provide for my two sisters and two brothers, and my mother, who was disabled to work ever since I knew she was my mother. It changed my whole perspective on life.
So you were the oldest, correct?
I have a sister that's 15 months older than me.
Okay.
Sally.
But the oldest boy, so you kind of felt a lot of responsibility to take care of everyone, it sounds like.
Yes, I inherited that from my father. My father and his brother, Willie Earl and Roy Lee, my father's Roy Lee, they controlled the community. They didn't allow house furniture out in the yard. They didn't allow, you had to keep up your grass, and they didn't allow drugs and alcoholism in the community. So I inherited that responsibility from my father, who is my king, and it projected me into kingdom.
Oh, that's a beautiful way of looking at it.
Roy Lee Boyd, that's my father.
So your father was also in the military?
Yes.
What branch was he in, and what was his service time like?
He was in airborne engineer unit, and it was during the Second World War.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And at that time, the Air Force and the Army was one.
Oh, yes.
It wasn't separate.
The Army, Air Force.
Right. But then I was in electronic communications. It was quite different from him, but I really wanted to follow in his footsteps somehow, but it wasn't for me, I guess.
I mean, I would say you're following in his footsteps, just doing service and, upholding those values that he instilled in you. So there are many ways to continue a legacy.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I have most of my uncles served in the military. I have a sister My younger sister served 22 years.
Oh, wow.
I have some cousins. One cousin went to the Navy. So we have a lot of military history in our family, and I'm proud of it. Yeah.
So did you continue your education in this new town? How old were you? You said you were 8 when you moved?
Yes.
And so what did that look like growing up there?
It was devastating to me. It was a small, slow country town. And I just couldn't connect with the people.
Yeah.
They were backwards thinking. They were satisfied with life the way it was, and that just wasn't me.
Yeah, and I imagine the 1950s, it's not a great era or time to be in a small racist town.
No. Well, the second time they burned the cross, me and my sisters and brothers were inside looking at television, and I kept seeing this light flicker, and I looked out the window, and the Klansmen, it was about 10 or 12 of them in full dress with weapons. And I told my sisters and brothers to get under the bed, do not come out until you hear my voice saying it's okay. And I put a pistol in each hand. I went outside and turned on the water hose and put out the cross. And I'm standing about 10 feet from them, and they told me, "You're crazy." And I said, "Yeah, thank you very much." And they said, "Well, we got guns." And I said, "Well, these aren't cap pistols." And I said, "I guarantee you, I'm taking somebody with me when I go." And they talked a little bit and said a few more things to me, and they said, "He's crazy," and they left.
Wow.
Mom didn't like that. The community didn't like that. The community told Mom that I was going to get everybody killed, so I had to go.
I mean, maybe bringing weapons onto somebody's front yard and burning a cross is the real threat, but sounds like this community was crazy and backwards and out of their minds.
I could not understand how I was the threat, and I was the only one fighting. There were men, women, and children in the community. Nobody wanted to help me. I was the black sheep, so to speak. Literally, so I had to go. I had to go.
Were there other Black families in the town, or were you guys pretty much the only family?
In this community, it was an all-Black community.
Okay.
And everybody was homeowners in this community, all Black, and a handful of white people with sheets over their head terrorizing the community. I wasn't having it.
Sounds like you're the only one who had the courage to kind of stand up. I'm sure a lot of people were scared that it would, they would become the targets if they said anything. And
my family told me I was crazy. They didn't believe I would get out of high school alive. But I made it. I'm 73 now.
Should see you now, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you've taken that kind of tenacity and willingness to do what other people won't through your whole life. Right. To me, at least.
Yes.
Based on what we've talked about.
So I did some traveling, went to Job Corps.
When you were 15?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And I came back and finished high school when I was 17. Moved to Atlanta, and I was registering for Morehouse College. Before that, I was classed a 4F, unfit for military service. As soon as I started registering for college, I got a letter stating that I was drafted into the U.S. Army.
Why did they originally give you the 4F?
Flat feet.
Okay.
Yes. And without examination, when I started registering, I started getting letters. The 9th letter, I ignored them because I had a bigger fight in the U.S. versus going overseas fighting some people I knew nothing about. So it took 9 draft notices to get me to go to the station and turn myself in. the ninth draft notice was written in red ink, and it scared my mother, and that convinced me that maybe I should report in.
Was that pretty difficult? I mean, I can imagine feeling, you don't have any control over the situation. You had this plan for college and to take care of your family that way.
Right.
What do you remember feeling when you went to that draft office?
Angry. How can somebody control my life? I'm not in control of my own life.
Mm-hmm.
I can't control my own path and destiny. Angry.
Reasonably so.
Yeah.
Quickly, before I move on to your time in the service, is there anything else from your childhood you want to talk about, or from some of those formative years, if there was anything like a really important story? I know we have your report cards from when you were a child.
Yes. I wasn't.
Oh, good grades.
Well, I didn't go to school that much. I skipped school a lot. I was rebellious. But for some reason, I was good at taking tests. And so I got good grades.
Yeah, hold up. Can you see it with the reflection?
I was not allowed to take shop or auto mechanics or any of the trades. They told me I was college material. So I felt the school was controlling my life. Everybody was controlling my life. And it angered me. But I eventually got over the anger.
Mm-hmm.
I incorporated positivity in my life, and that changed my life tremendously.
So after you were drafted, what happened?
Well, I told them, they said, where do you want to go? And I said, I want to be a Marine. I want to be a mechanic in the Marines. They said, okay, get in that line. And so I got in the line, and they gave me shots and clothes and stuff. And they said, okay, you're in electronic communications in the U.S. Army. And I said, no, I'm going to shut up, move out. Okay, so that was my introduction into the military. But since then, after 22 years, I've learned that it's a unique fraternity. It takes a unique person to succeed in the military and put up with the stress and strife of military life. So I adjusted, and I used my positivity to propel me forward.
So, you went into the Army, even though that wasn't your first choice.
Right.
And so you did basic training with the Army, and then what happened in those couple years, like your first couple years in the military? What was that like?
Well, I started basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. They stopped it and moved us to Fort Gordon, Georgia.
Okay.
And I had to start basic training over.
Oh.
And then I went to radio operators course and intelligence school in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. I came back to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and took an advanced communications course. I was the honor graduate out of that.
Oh, wow.
And I got orders to Vietnam, went home for 30 days before transitioning to Vietnam.
And what year was this when you got the order to go to Vietnam?
1969.
Okay.
69,
some of the
70,
earlier years there.
Right. And I caught double pneumonia, so I couldn't go to Vietnam. So when I got out of the hospital, they sent me orders to do White House communications at the Pentagon.
Oh, wow.
So I did that for 2 years.
So what was that job like?
It was an easy job, just sending messages. But it was hard because they were bombing messages for Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was killing a lot of people. And it really tore me up.
Yeah, because you felt like you were kind of delivering the orders that caused bombs to be dropped.
And it's against my will, but I had to comply because I was in the military.
It sounds, did you meet a lot of bigwigs in that part of your job? Or were you meeting with a lot of the big government officials in charge of Vietnam?
Yes. I even met Richard Milhouse Nixon.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Brilliant guy. I didn't agree with all his political policies, but I enjoyed the few conversations we had because he's a really smart guy. I just didn't agree with all the things that he was putting out.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy that you went from, you're planning to go to college at Morehouse and then suddenly you're, at the White House talking to Richard Nixon and, doing intelligence back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were there any times where you suddenly were like, how did my life get here?
Yes. Yeah, especially since my message runners were lieutenants, officers, and here I am just a private. And so I felt important, but I also felt that I'm doing something against my will. So it was mixed feelings for me, especially at a young age, 19 years old with such responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
It was stressful. But one thing about the military is you learn to adjust quickly. You have to adjust on the fly. So I got through it.
So after those 2 years doing liaison work, what did you do instead?
I was transitioned from the military to civilian life again. And I went back home to Greenville, South Carolina. And I took a job at a bakery. And I met my wife at the bakery. And my life changed again. Now I had a responsibility greater than just me and myself and my immediate family. And after about a year, we got married. And 2 years after that, my son came. And 5 years after that, my daughter. So I had a family.
You can show this picture, this beautiful picture of your wife.
Yes.
That's such a sweet one.
Yes. And my granddaughter made this for me. That's her jewelry around the picture of her. Yes.
That's such a sweet photo. So what were you doing for work after then when you were with her? In your early marital life?
I ran a bakery for a company called Winn-Dixie Groceries.
Okay.
I ran the bakery and we made buns and hot dog buns, hamburger buns, little cakes and stuff like that. But after a year, 9 months, and 29 days of being out of the military, I went back into the military. And we started traveling. A year after I got in, we started traveling. I worked at Fort Gordon, Georgia.
Okay.
I was a phone patch operator. And a phone patch operator is where you have these radios and you're communicating to other countries where soldiers are. And they dial into the phone to the radio patch. And that radio patch goes over the air back to America to me. And I patch them in through phone to their relatives.
Interesting.
Yes.
I never even think about that as something that needs to be done. I guess,
yes. It's very important for morale and keep the soldiers' morale up and so forth.
So why did you decide to go back into the military?
Well, I was a workaholic. I worked myself into unfit health. And the military took me back and I gained my health back. And so I transitioned from civilian life back to military life, where I had excelled. The first 2 years, I made E5. So I said, I can do that. And plus get my medical attention.
Yeah.
At the cost of the military.
And so your wife was living on base with you in Georgia as well?
Yes.
And at that time, did you guys have any kids yet, or was it just the two of you for the first couple of years?
The first 2 years, it was just the two of us. Oh, I did funeral detail when I was at Fort Gordon, Georgia. And we buried a lot of war heroes and veterans in Arlington National Cemetery. And that was quite an experience. Besides White House communications, I did White House special detail for funerals. And that was really interesting. I learned a lot of heroes, learned a lot about heroes and historic events that they were involved in. And that was really educational to me.
Yeah, seems like it would be a hard job too, though.
Really hard. You have to put your emotions aside. And it's also interesting of how different cultures and ethnicities celebrate the passing or ongoing of a family member, especially the Polish. It's a party. They don't believe in moping and crying. They believe in paying the respects and celebrating and moving on.
Celebrating the life of the person instead of mourning the death.
Right.
It's a really kind of beautiful outlook on life, because you've made when somebody that you love dies, you remember that you've had so many memories that you've made with them, and those are kind of the parts of them that stay when they're gone, is the people they've interacted with. And
so I make it a point to say their name. Francis Curlin. Most of my life, my partner, most of my life, and she's still precious to me. Even though she's not here physically, she's in my heart.
Well, you guys had a beautiful life together. And
yeah.
This one's you. There we go.
That's me.
So this is from your later years of service when you were in the Army?
Yes.
What would you say about how old are you in this picture?
Probably late 30s.
Late 30s?
Yes.
So were you still working on the base in Georgia, or what did those years, because I know you had a long career in the military?
Yes. Well, I spent about a year in Georgia, and then I got orders for Athens, Greece.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's exciting.
It was really exciting. Going to a foreign country with my family. And my wife got pregnant 4 months, about 4.5 months before we left. And so they had to delay it because my son couldn't travel. They wouldn't let him on a plane unless he was 4 months old. So he was 4.5 when we got to Greece.
4.5 months?
4.5 months old. And his first language was Greek.
Wow. Does he still speak it a little bit, or
no,
not anymore?
If you don't use it, you lose it.
Lose it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But after 4.5 years, we got back to
a long time.
The United States. And I took him to his grandmother, and she picked him up and said, "I'm finally getting to see my grandson." And she held him close, and he says, "Yasu korichimu, ikanati kalive karasto." And she says, "Oh Lord, what is he saying?" I said, "No, don't alienate my son, because you don't understand him. He don't speak that much English." So it was quite an experience.
What were you doing in Greece that whole time?
I was a communications specialist. Greece and Turkey was fighting for the 4.5 years I was there. Cars blowing up down the street, hotels blowing up. And I had to pose as a civilian because it was dangerous for me to even don military clothing. I didn't shave, let my hair grow out, and was doing some intelligence work and some communications. I worked with nuclear warheads.
Oh, wow.
Yes. The communications device on nuclear warheads is what set them off. And if they were trying to arm themselves way down in the ground in the bunkers, I had to go down and fix the device before it blew up. So it was stressful, but I was good at my job.
I mean, you were doing some serious Cold War intelligence work, it seems like.
Yes, for most of my career.
Was it ever worrying having your family there in Greece with you doing this kind of work?
Well, my family, both sides of my family, was worried that we were going into a war zone.
Mm-hmm.
But the Pentagon called and spoke to them and assured them
Oh, wow.
that I would be safe with my family. And I wasn't really concerned because I was well trained and I knew my job. And I was always protective of my family. So it was not worrisome for me.
Good, good. So after Greece, you said you guys came back to the United States for a little bit.
Yes.
What did your military career look like after Greece?
It was really interesting. I did a lot of communications. I was at Fort Hood, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and in charge of a platoon. We had microwave, satellite, AM, FM, all kinds of different communications that we had to set up for the generals when we went to deploy in the field. And so it was really interesting, challenging. I learned a lot, I taught a lot. But me and my family, we always had a good time. Whenever I get off work, I always wanted to just be with my family, leave work behind, and do something together with my family.
What kind of things did you guys do for fun when you weren't in work?
We did a lot of dancing.
Ooh.
As a matter of fact, my sister wanted to come to Fort Hood, Texas with me. So she volunteered for the military and told them she wanted to come to Texas. So it was me and my wife, my son, and my sister. We had a great time. We had a great time. I mean, it was hot in Texas, but we had a lot of fun. We went to a lot of places. Austin, Texas is great. Dallas is okay.
I agree.
Yeah, Austin had a lot of jazz festivals and stuff, a lot of musicians. So we traveled a lot and enjoyed ourselves.
So did you serve out the remainder of your military career at Fort Hood, or did you do any other traveling or deployments?
Just 2 years at Fort Hood, and then I was off to Germany.
Oh.
Spent 4.5 years in Germany. And it was, my family was delayed because of the fact that my wife was pregnant with my second child, my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so 4.5 months later, they came over. I had to go in advance and get things set up for them. And then they came 4.5 months later. So her first language was German.
Getting some multicultural kids there.
Yeah.
They're traveling all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, your son's been Greece and Germany.
Yes.
Yes. So this was before the fall of the Berlin Wall. So were you doing a lot of intelligence work there too? And
yes.
That also sounds like it was a crazy environment to be in.
Well, my sister and 2 of my uncles, actually 3 of my uncles, were in Germany with me. And
oh, wow.
We go to each other's house and have just family dinners on the weekends, and we did traveling together. It was an exciting experience, and it was a shared experience with immediate family. So it was great. It was really great. My job was really stressful. Always being in
Can imagine.
ComSec, which is communication security, and also being on the nuclear side of things. It was always stressful, but it was such a great joy to have family to share my life with. And wow, it was really, really good times.
Yeah, I'm sure it was important to have your family there to relieve some of that stress when you're getting off of work and, worrying about what the Russians are up to and what everyone's doing with their nukes. So
yes. As a matter of fact, when I was in Alaska, one of my main jobs was listening to the Ruskies. The Bering Straits in the wintertime is frozen solid. You could walk to Russia. But
oh, yeah.
when it melts out, they put us on a solid piece of land and we set set up satellite communications, and we go to bed at night. Sometimes we wake up in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and they have to fly the crane helicopter in and pick our rig up and set us back on solid ground. So it was interesting.
Were you in Alaska right after Germany? Is that when you went there?
No, after Germany, I went back to, as a matter of fact, I went to Colorado Springs, Fort Hood, Fort Carson.
Yeah.
Yes. And I stayed there about 3 years, and then I got orders for Alaska. Unfortunately, my wife didn't want to go with me.
I'm sure she heard Alaska and thought, too cold, no way.
Yes. The funny thing about it is everybody's asking me, how are you going to live? It's 6 months of daylight, 6 months of darkness. How are you going to tell time? How are you going to do that? I said, well, there's thousands of people that's gone there before me, and they have these little funny things that sit on your wrist, and it has a band around it, and it's got a picture of Mickey Mouse with 2 hands, and that's how you tell time.
Mickey Mouse taking a trip with you up to Alaska, spying the Russians.
Yeah. So I had a very interesting career, stressful.
It's fascinating.
But fun at the same time, exciting. I enjoyed it. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good idea to have every American, either born or naturalized, or whatever, to spend at least 2 years in military service. It gave me a sense of belonging to a country that I was so alienated in.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Do you feel like being in the military kind of changed your perspective on things?
Yes, it did. It forced me to see things as they really are. I learned a lot about the U.S. government and how it works, and there's a lot of secrets that the government has in order to be the great American country that we are. There's a lot of things that go on behind closed doors that most civilians don't have a clue about, and you're held to secrecy, especially while you're in. I had to when I finally retired, I had to get a psychiatrist to tell me, tell people what you did. Don't keep it all in. You can't keep that bottled up. So I thank her for that. And I tell people about some stuff and they don't believe it, but I say it's up to you, but just look at the facts. We're still a great country, but we have a lot of growing to do.
I think that's a good way to look at it, that, you know, you can love your country, but also want to improve it. And I think that is a sign of love for your country, wanting to make it better and do everything you can to create a better United States for your children and your grandchildren.
Yes.
And I think it sounds like you were a big part of that.
Well, I feel 22 years of dedicated service, I feel that I did something. I affected somebody.
Oh, for sure.
If no more than myself and my immediate family.
Imagine it was kind of hard. You're doing a job where you're kind of in the background. You don't get a lot of like acknowledgement for the work you're putting in, or you know, it's a lot of stress, as you've said,
especially
in your job.
My wife was always telling me, you have to tell me where you're going. You have to. When I get a phone call in the middle of the night and have to get on a plane and I'm gone for months, and she says, where are you going? Where are you at? Can I call you? And I say no. It brings a lot of separation, a lot of suspicion, a lot of doubt.
Yeah.
So it's not the easiest of life, but it has a lot of benefits. It taught me a lot, and I especially tried to teach my family, my wife and children, and my brothers and sisters about how if you live for 70, 80, or 90 years in this country and don't learn how to play the game of living in America, it's a sad story. So I learned the game, and I tried to teach my family the game of living in America.
What are some of the lessons that you taught your family about living in America? Because I know you obviously you experienced a lot of racism when you were younger, and I'm sure
Yes.
it continued for
Yes.
many years. And
well, it still goes on today.
Yeah.
People don't realize there's systemic racism that's built in. A lot of my friends are Caucasians, white people, and they say, well, I don't see it. Of course you don't. You're looking through your eyes. Walk a mile in my shoes. I see it every day, and I deal with it. It's not a hindrance to my life. I just have to use my workarounds that I've developed through the years. But I've learned how to play the game.
And I always say, I mean, it's not fair that you have to do workarounds. You have to work harder than, white people might have to in certain scenarios. And I'm sure, I mean, you did a lot of work to get pretty high up in the military and had a really successful career. And
yes,
I mean, coming up doing that in the 60s must have been quite difficult.
Yes. I actually got 15 Article 15s.
Whoa.
And Article 15s is punishment. And I made E5 twice. I made E6 twice. I made E7 once. Because I'm not rebellious, but there are certain principles that I hold near and dear to my heart that I will let nobody deter me from my principles of life. So it was interesting. My wife told me a lot of times that you could be Sergeant Major of the Army if you just do what they say. But what they say is not always right for me. So
well, maybe that's probably why they corralled you into intelligence life, because then you're doing, you got to think on your feet. You're doing a little more independent work, kind of.
Yes.
Using your smarts, your clever skills, which aren't always following the rules, but
Right.
might be good for other kinds of jobs.
Yeah.
What were some particularly unique or memorable experiences from your time in the service?
Well, in preparing myself for Vietnam, had orders to go to Vietnam. I contracted double pneumonia while I was on furlough, and I almost died. My temperature got up to 108.
Wow.
I had blisters in my mouth, the palm of my hands, and the bottom of my feet, and they gave me up for dead, but I fought through it. In 1991, before I got out of the military, I contracted pancreatitis that November, and I lived off IVs, one in each arm, until from November to February. And I was 140 pounds. And they came to my room that evening and told me I wouldn't make it to morning and contact my family. And I had to rip the IVs out of my arm because they kept putting this morphine in me. And I couldn't control my thoughts to pray. And so they thought I was crazy, and they strapped me down and they said, "Why'd you do that?" I said, "You keep giving me this stuff. I can't concentrate and pray." I woke up 3 days later, and my God told me to get up, take a shower, get something to eat, and go home. And I was walking down the hall early that morning with an IV stand in each hand. And the nurse came and said, "Mr. Boyd, you're too weak to walk. What are you doing?" And I was alive. And they strapped me to the gurney again and put me back in bed. And they said, "What did you do? Your tests are all positive. There's nothing negative." And I just told them I prayed to my God, and he answered my prayer. When I was a child in high school, I was riding my bike down this parkway, and there was a dip in the road, and I always jumped it. But this day, when I jumped it, I saw my front wheel going down the street, and So I tried to ditch my bike, and it caught my ankle when I ditched it, and it slapped my face to the pavement, and I lost the right side of my face, scraped off on the road. Some traumatic experiences, but I'm thankful to my God. He's a healing God. He's a loving God, and I'm 73 and here today, and I thank him every day.
Is it your birthday today?
No, my birthday is August the 5th,
okay.
But I'm still living. Every day is a birthday to me. I have a new chance to get it right every day I wake up, so it's a birthday to me in a sense.
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, all of these experiences have made you really appreciative of life, and you have such a positive outlook, and that's beautiful to see.
Life is good.
So when did you get out of the military? What caused you to retire?
1991. I tried to retire 4 years. I had 18 years in, and I tried to retire. Mm-hmm. The military says the top 3 in communications are being retained. You can't retire. And I got orders for Iraq War, Desert Storm.
Oh, wow.
And I was on my way to pick up my Desert Storm uniforms. I landed in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And the next morning, I was in the hospital. I had passed out in pain, and I had 2 hernia operations, and that kept me from going to the war in Iraq, Desert Storm. But they still retained me until 1991. They finally let me retire. And I was 41 with 22 years of service in 1991, and I was free.
Yeah. Finally.
Yes.
I mean, because, you know, as you were saying, 22 years before that, you were ready to go to Morehouse College, and
yes.
Now you're retired, and 2 kids and a wife.
Yes.
Were you awarded any medals or citations for service during your long career?
Yes. I think I had 8 Army Accommodation medals.
Wow.
And after my 8th one, I turned them down after that because it's just something that they awarded me for being me and doing what I do. And it forced me to keep changing my array of medals and so forth. So I said, no more. I didn't accept anymore.
I've got the perfect setup now. No more messing with it.
But yes, I got promoted fast. I made sergeant in 18 months. And once I became sergeant, I was the boss, telling other people what to do rather than me being the flunky. No more grease pits and stuff for me. So I made the assignments. I made the decisions. So it really helped me along in life. I use some of the same principles in life today, in civilian life, that I learned in the military.
So what did you do after you got out?
Travel, enjoyed life, and then I decided I had to go to work. So I drove trucks, and I gave up truck driving, and I started working at Home Depot. And I worked in practically every department in Home Depot, and I ended up in customer service. And I went to visit my family in South Carolina from Colorado. And my family kept asking me, why are you still working? You worked 2 jobs your whole life. Why are you still working? And I couldn't answer them. So when I got back and went to work, the first day after I got back, I didn't make it through the whole day. I told my boss I'm going home, and he said, okay, I'll punch you out and I'll see you tomorrow. And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm done. That's it. I quit.
You finally asked yourself, you're like, wait, why am I working?
Exactly. And after that, I became a landlord. I bought a duplex and became a landlord. And I just got rid of that March this year. And now I'm looking for a franchise to run.
Oh, you keep busy, it sounds like.
I'm still living, so I keep going.
So right after your career in the military, why'd you guys decide to come to Colorado?
I was sent here on orders in Colorado Springs.
Okay, so that was when you were at Fort
Yes,
Carson?
yes. And I worked at Buckley and Fitzsimmons. And I'm driving up, seeing those mountains every day. After I had a stint in Alaska, I came back to Denver to see those mountains. I love it.
You couldn't leave.
Yeah.
So what are some hobbies that you like to do in your retired times?
I mentor people. I collect coins. I'm a numismatist.
Coins, that's really
yes.
interesting. I know you brought a couple with you. Do you want to show some?
Yes.
These ones are, you said some of your oldest.
These are coins. The common term is widow's mite, and it's referenced in the Bible. These are really, really old coins. They have the year, I can't read.
Oh yeah, that one says 103 to 76 BC, and this one is 135 to 37 BC.
Right.
Wow.
Before the coming of Christ.
They're like small, almost like archaeological evidence.
Yeah.
Wow. I know you said you had old coins, and I was thinking, oh, maybe we'll get back to like 1600s, but this is old.
Old. And I also have some gold coins. I have some platinum coins, palladium coins. Those are rare metals. So yeah, I specialize in modern American coins.
How did you get into that?
I collected coins as a child. I used to bury them in the backyard in tin cans and stuff. And when we moved, I lost those. So through the years, I've had several collections that I've lost and started over again. This collection I'm dedicating to my grandson. He's 5 years old, and he will have a great start in life when he reaches the age of 18. Yeah.
Is he your only grandchild? Just one grandson for now, or you got more?
I have two twins. They're 10 years old.
Oh.
Seth and Olivia are 10. They're twins. And Carlos Jr., he's 5.
And that's great.
I just love them. So it's a different, I love my children, but my grandchildren, it's a different type of love.
You can spoil them.
Yes.
You don't have to do the day-to-day raising, but you get to see them and spoil them.
Right.
And get all the love and affection.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a special kind of love between, grandkids and grandparents, of course. Yes. Do you have a favorite coin you want to show? Any other ones in particular that are some of your favorites?
The palladium coins are, yes. And the gold coins. I have some coins from 1908, St. Gaudens, Kennedy 50-cent pieces, 24 karat gold Kennedy 50-cent piece.
Wow.
There's a lot of coins in here.
I know.
Those you can look at the dates on them.
Yeah, you've got a pretty good collection there.
Yeah.
So Reagan legacy coin from 1988.
Yes. 24 karat gold.
Yeah.
But I have somewhere in here, I have some palladium coins, platinum coins. Palladium is the hardest, rarest metal that we have. After that is titanium, and gold is the third, but I have tons of silver coins also. Numismatist. It's a great hobby. It can be expensive.
Well, imagine.
But most coins go up in value no matter what the economy is doing.
Good
So,
point.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you got the gold and the platinum, which hopefully won't lose value,
Right.
even if, the coins themselves.
Yeah.
About how many coins would you say you have in your collection?
Thousands.
That's really cool.
Those are my hobbies, helping people and collecting coins.
For helping people, what does that kind of involve? What do you like to do for like community service kind of things?
Well, a lot of people come to me for advice on so many things like financing. I taught finances to a lot of soldiers, officers, their parents, their wives, and husbands. And I still do that. I give financial advice, relationship advice, how to get along. Most people don't understand the art of forgiveness and compromising. Okay, so if I sacrifice this, what am I giving up? What will I get in return? It's just how to live this life in a fruitful, cheerful, positive way. I just dedicate my life to that, and I share it with other people as often as I can.
Yeah, well, I mean, doing something like this is sharing that positive life outlook with a lot of people, hopefully.
Yes.
So, I know you did some other hobbies when you got out. You coach girls basketball.
Yes.
What was that like?
Oh, that was a joy of my life. Helping people, educating people. What we taught the girls were life-changing experiences and things to live by. We made them not only successful on the hardwood court, but those things you could take through life. In 2010, we won the state championship of Colorado, and that was very unusual. It's only been done one other time, and that's Montbello High won it in the early 90s, and East High won it in 2010. So there's only two city teams, DPS teams, that have won the state championship.
Wow.
And me and my son coached together at East High girls basketball. Yes, great experience.
And so your son and your grandkids all live in Denver still?
Yes.
You get to see them all the time?
Yes, every day. Great. Every day.
And did they give you a nickname on the basketball team? I heard there's some tell of a nickname.
Everybody calls me Popz. Coach Popz or Popz. The parents, the school administrators. That's all I get is Popz. Hey, Popz. That's it.
Where did that come from?
Well, my son and daughter always introduced me as, well, this is Popz. They say, okay, Popz, pleased to meet you. And it just stuck through the years. And it really got to be my only name when I started coaching basketball. That's all I got was Popz. Popz Boyd or Coach Popz. That's it.
Perfect. It fits. It fits for sure. Yeah. What would you say is a once in a lifetime or a particularly memorable experience that you had with your wife in those retired years?
Before I retired, of all the countries we walked the streets of France, Italy, Spain, Germany, Greece, Turkey, Belgium.
Wow.
We went to a lot of castles, factories. We did a lot of things together. My brother and his family came from South Carolina, and we all went up to Pikes Peak. We drove up to Pikes Peak and experienced that. It's a lot of traveling. I still love to travel. I used to go home about every 6 months with me and my son, go back to South Carolina. We flew a lot. We drove a lot. I even took the train to South Carolina one time.
From
with my
Denver?
daughter. Yes.
Oh, wow.
It's a 3-day ride on a train.
Ooh.
But I'm really restricted from doing a lot of traveling now because of my health. But I do make phone calls, so I still communicate with them. And I just love life.
And then this here is a picture of, is this in South Carolina
Yes,
with your family?
My brothers and sisters. Yeah. I love them. Yeah. Yes.
How would you say that, both your childhood experiences and military service have kind of impacted your life and led you to where you are today?
Oh, my childhood and military life really shaped me into who I am this day. We are only the choices that we make. That's all we are. I am where I am right now, sitting here in this seat because the choices I made in the past. And that's what got me here. And I accept my mistakes. I accept my downfalls and shortcomings. And I learn from them and put them away. And I always take a step forward. Always, but always.
So if there was a final message you could leave for future generations and what they could kind of learn from your life experiences, what would that be?
If we're going to be 70, 80, 90, 100 years on this earth, learn how to play the game and learn it well. Treat others as they want to be treated. Know there's a higher power and enjoy your life. Stay positive. The frequencies you give out in the universe come back to you multiplied. So if you put out good frequencies, you're going to receive good frequencies. I am who I am and what I am because of the life that I've lived and the stuff I've put out in the universe. It was enjoyable for the most part. Going back over a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Brought some different type emotions, but I try not to let it show. I always try to present a positive face to the public. And it's not put on. It's just me. It's just who I am. I always want to be positive about everything.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of emotions probably came up today, but thank you. And, we're here to support if you need any support or anything.
And you guys are volunteers. See, I've learned through life, there's always a star. In every scar you encounter in life, look for the star.
I like that.
It keeps me smiling. It keeps me positive. It keeps me moving forward. There's a star in every scar. So I thank you guys. I mean, I really appreciate.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for the interview. I had a really great time talking to you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you for your service as well and everything that you've done.
I'd rather you thank me for my sacrifice, because if you know the things I did in service, it might not be a pleasant thought for you.
Yeah, thank you for the time you put into your experiences and the way you impacted the world.
I received that. I received that. Thank you.
All right.